After my transplant, I had wanted to know who my donor was right away. You know, when you have somebody that is keeping you alive, you know, you want to know who this person is.
Just would love to know how this person was, what he was like, deep down, inside out, whether it be good, whether it be...
I think the majority of us want to know because you've got such an important part in your body. You want to know where it's come from.
I am waiting to find out a little bit about my donor because he did give me the gift of life, and you couldn't ask for that no more than even winning a lottery than the gift of life.
Jim is one of those patients who experienced an extraordinary change directly after his operation 5 years ago. His wife Maggie also noticed it straight away.
He just surprised everybody. I could see the difference in him, the difference in his eyes, the sparkle come back, and he just seemed completely different.
Like, I left school when I was 15. I was a coalman and then a lorry driver, and so I didn't have a very good education, but I learnt myself how to write, and I'm not very good at spelling. So it was a surprise to me that 6 months after my transplant, I just sat down one morning and just scribbled something down, and then that led to many poems and me book what I'm writing. I just was writing and writing and writing, and that's how it came about, like, you know, and I don't know where it come from, to be honest with you, because like I say, I've never done anything like this before. I'm sending you 1,000 kisses.
Before his transplant, Jim had no creative talent for writing and very little time for sentimentality.
Never ever wrote anything before in my life. Never even sent her a love letter in 42 years. Have I?
Oh.
Well, I have my girlfriend.
After Jim had already started writing poetry, he received a letter from the donor family, which contained lines of verse. The coincidence was too much for Jim, and now he is curious.
Eventually, when I do meet Martin's family, I'm going to feel like a part of his family, and hopefully they will think that I'm a part of their family. Don't think of him as being dead. Think of him resting me instead, for I will do my utmost best until we're both in arms at rest.
For many recipients, this gift of life generates feelings of both gratitude and guilt because of the circumstances that lie behind where their heart came from. In a transplant, the heart's journey starts with a donor, and an event that is always born out of unforeseen tragedy. For them too, it is important to follow their heart.
Today it's 5 years since my son Kyle was killed. Obviously it's a very sad day for me, and I take flowers over there and have a little chat, and I usually write a little letter to him, just telling him, keeping him informed about the rest of the family. I have a letter for you, babe. My darling Kyle, another year has passed now. He's 5. It's still hard to come to terms with you no longer being here. I still hear your voice and long for you to be back with us. I still feel your presence. Shane and Claire are engaged.
Today, I'm going to be showing you some of the tactics in bait presentation and technique in how to catch a little nipper's roach.
He was a laughing, joking boy, a happy boy, always a smile on his face.
So when you drop it.
Janice has 4 sons. One night in February 5 years ago, her second son, Kyle, sustained terrible head injuries in a car accident. Despite efforts to revive him, he was eventually pronounced brain dead.
As your last words to me were, I love you, Mum. Mum, I love you, son. God bless till we are together again, never to be parted. Your ever-loving Mum. There we are, and that's from the heart, Carl. The hardest part is part of me is missing. You can never ever get that back. You can learn to live with the pain of losing your loved ones, but you never ever get it back completely. You know, there's always going to, like, there's an empty place at the table. All clean.
Now, Janice has to do one last thing for her son.
One day I said, I'm going to put my hand on your heart again and I'm going to feel that beat. I promise you, and you know, I never break my promises. And that is something that has been keeping me going for so long.
Because of strict confidentiality regulations around a transplant, the only thing Janice knew was that her son's heart and lungs had been donated to a boy named Daniel.
I want to feel that heart beating again. I want to put my hand on his heart, on that heart, and feel that bump, and it's going to be a connection between me and Kyle. I know that Kyle isn't here with us anymore, and I know that that's Dan's heart now, but there's still Kyle in that heart, okay? So if they mean that there's Kyle in that heart, then he's still got me in there as well.
Now Janice is finally going to fulfill her promise. She has set a date to meet Daniel. For many like Janice, the heart is symbolic in our emotions. Now, scientists in California are testing to see whether this symbolism is true. Discovery of brain cells in the heart has brought with it new ideas about memory and intelligence. Scientists have been searching for an explanation for an extraordinary phenomenon, in which memories and tastes seem to have been transplanted along with the human heart. Many heart surgeons believe it's psychological.
Suddenly he or she finds themselves so much better, but also having to adapt to a new life, and they tend almost naturally to link it to the donor, and you can come up with many ideas. Not all of them are necessarily true.
Having a heart transplant is trauma, and it's been a whole set of environmental experiences being in an intensive care unit. The second thing is immunosuppressive medications, some of which have other effects, psychological effects, mood swings, euphoria sometimes, strange thought patterns.
And yet the level of coincidence in some stories of memory transplants are compelling and difficult to explain away. Some scientists now think they've found a system of neurons in the heart that challenges the orthodox view of the brain.
Until the recent past, science has glorified the brain. The questions we should be asking as scientists is that the only place these things happen? When we just know about the heart and its remarkable energy and its connections with the brain and its neurons and its hormones, if we know that, shouldn't we be asking and here comes the key scientific question, is there another source of intelligence? Is there another way to think? Not instead, but also. The question isn't either or. The question is and. And if we only glorify the brain, we'll never be open to the possibility that another organ thinks.
Researchers at the Institute of Heart Math in California are investigating the possibility that the heart could actually have its own unique intelligence. Dr. Roland McCraty and his colleagues have developed experiments to see whether the metaphors of the heart could stand up to scientific scrutiny.
I first heard of Paul Pearsall when I think he contacted me in terms of exploring possible mechanisms that might explain the phenomena of a heart transplant recipient taking on some of the personality characteristics of the person that they got the heart from. He had interviewed quite a number of patients that had this experience, and there's enough of this that I think we have to take it seriously, that there is something going on here.
Dr. McCraty's research is controversial, but he found support in evidence provided by a neurologist, Dr. Andrew Amour from Montreal in Canada. After many years treating patients with heart disease, he observed there was more to the heart than the current scientific model could explain.
In those days, in the 60s, there was no consideration of the nervous system. Heart was just a pump. And the reason is because people have not had the facility to see the heart in any other form. You look at it and it's a pump, right? And my own bias is that in the last 50 years or so, we have developed the ability, with all the electronics, to record more than just the muscle on the heart, but the neurons on the heart.
As he looked closer, he noticed something remarkable.
I started to record outside the heart and found neurons that no one had expected before. And I thought, gee, that's sort of nice. I wonder if that could be on the heart, right? So from there, and having developed techniques that I felt good about, I put them on the heart and bingo, they worked.
He had discovered a sophisticated collection of neurons in the heart. According to him, they were organized into a small but complex nervous system. He called it the little brain in the heart. Suddenly, our traditional views on the brain and intelligence were being challenged. If the heart had brain cells, could it have its own unique type of intelligence? The researchers at HeartMath believe so. They call it heart intelligence.
The heart itself has a quite complex nervous system, and all the types of neurons and the way they're wired together to be able to say that the heart has a functional brain. And Dr. Armour has pictures of it. I mean, there's definitely a little brain in the heart. And the types of neurons that are in the brain and the heart have also been demonstrated to have both short and long-term memory, using the same type of techniques that you use to show that neurons in the brain exhibit memory.
This little collection of neurons can retain input function for a little while. So if your heart beats, puts it in, this little guy is still oscillating, so the last cardiac cycle could set up a number of future cardiac cycles. That's memory.
Once a heart is removed from the donor, it is cooled and can stay alive for up to 4 hours.
Heart's in the room. Thank you.
Only when the heart is perfused with blood from its new owner does it spontaneously start beating again. It is thought that this internal nervous system, or brain in the heart, is what allows a heart transplant to work. McCraty goes further.
Certainly the function of the heart itself have got to be transplanted and go along. When you think of the heart, it's a very complex organ. All the coordination that has to happen within the heart for it to pump efficiently, and it really can't function properly and efficiently without the neural system in the heart. That's very clear. So those types of functions have got to get transplanted, and there's certain types of memory there that the heart has to remember what it did last beat or a few beats ago to be able to function properly now.
Boy, the heart started beating right away, didn't it? Pretty nice.
If the heart has a nervous system and a type of memory needed for its efficient function, could higher level memories also be stored and transferred? And what would this tell us about where our memory resides?
Memory itself is what's called a distributed process. And this has been known for many, many, many hundred years now, that you can't localize memory to a neuron or a group of neurons. The memory itself is distributed throughout the neural system. So why do we have to draw a line at the throat and say that memory is only distributed from here to here? Why couldn't it be distributed throughout the whole neural system?
And if memory is distributed throughout the nervous system, including organs like the heart, what would this mean for transplant recipients?
When you put a heart into a transplant, we could potentially retrieve some of those memories that were distributed throughout the whole system. I'm certainly not saying that is the explanation, but it's plausible that that could be what's going on.